Good afternoon, everybody. I'll be leading our Lent devotional time today from Mark chapter 15, verses 1 through 20. I'd like to just read all of those verses for us as we get started today. Mark chapter 15. And as soon as it was morning, the chief priests held a consultation with the elders and scribes and the whole council. And they bound Jesus and led him away and delivered him over to Pilate. And Pilate asked him, "Are you the king of the Jews?" And he answered him, "You have said so." And the chief priests accused him of many things. And Pilate again asked him, "Have you no answer to make? See how many charges they bring against you?" But Jesus made no further answer, so that Pilate was amazed. Now at the feast he used to release for them one prisoner for whom they asked. And among the rebels in prison who had committed murder in the insurrection there was a man called Barabbas. And the crowd came up and began to ask Pilate to do as he usually did for them. And he answered them, saying, "Do you want me to release for you the king of the Jews?" For he perceived that it was out of envy that the chief priests had delivered him up. But the chief priests stirred up the crowd to have him release for them Barabbas instead. And Pilate again said to them, "Then what shall I do with the man you call the king of the Jews?" And they cried out again, "Crucify him." And Pilate said to them, "Why? What evil has he done?" But they shouted all the more, "Crucify him." So Pilate, wishing to satisfy the crowd, released for them Barabbas, and having scourged Jesus, he delivered him to be crucified. And the soldiers led him away inside the palace, that is, the governor's headquarters, and they called together the whole battalion. And they clothed him in a purple cloak, and twisting together a crown of thorns, they put it on him. And they began to salute him, "Hail, King of the Jews!" And they were striking his head with a reed and spitting on him and kneeling down in homage to him. And when they had mocked him, they stripped him of the purple cloak and put his own clothes on him, and they led him out to crucify him. It's a very powerful portion of the story of Jesus, the final days, the final hours before his crucifixion. This doesn't give all the details of the scourging that they gave him, but if you read other accounts of this, it's hard to read. And there are certain dramatic expressions of this as well, like the Passion of the Christ movie and others that are hard to watch. Very powerful, the depths of the suffering that Jesus experienced here. I want to focus on just those last few verses today in the devotional time, and recognizing that Jesus suffered greatly. It's important for us to remember, as Pastor Jonathan mentioned a couple of days ago in his devotional time, that Jesus was fully human. So he experienced the depths of human suffering here. The scourging, the mocking, they spat on him, they hit him, they mocked him, they put a crown of thorns on him. Jesus suffered. And I know that some of you are suffering right now. Suffering emotionally, mentally, sometimes physically right now, financially maybe, relationally. There is so much suffering going on right now. Some of you may be feeling discriminated against or persecuted in that way, mocked. I want you to know that Jesus knows. Jesus knows what it's like to experience the depths of human suffering. He knows what you're going through. He doesn't know just theoretically. He knows very personally, very physically. In fact, he continues to bear the marks of that suffering, of that pain in his body to this day. And what's encouraging to us, a couple things about that. One is that we are not alone. We are not alone in our suffering, even though right now we may feel alone, having to be isolated, and we may not know the depths to which others are suffering as we are, because we are not able to be together in that suffering. But Jesus knows. Jesus is with us. Jesus is with you. Not only that, not only does he know, not only are you not alone in your suffering, he is not just one who has suffered and suffers alongside of you. He is one who also intercedes for you. He's at the right hand of God the Father right now, right this moment, interceding for you. He is with you. He is for you during this time, during whatever suffering that you are experiencing. I know that doesn't necessarily bring like a smile to your face in that way. It doesn't necessarily bring happiness during a time of suffering, especially great suffering. But I pray that it would encourage you, encourage your heart to know, to be reminded of, especially this week, that Jesus suffered. Jesus knows. Jesus is with us in our suffering, and Jesus is interceding. He's fighting for us on behalf of us. And we can have hope knowing what is coming in the passages that follow this, knowing the hope that we celebrate this week. I pray that would encourage us today.